Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It's Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. It's just after, no, it's not quite 2:30 in the afternoon. We took a quick break and we're back to talk about H 915 relating to an extended producer responsibility program for beverage containers. So we have Mike O'Grady from Ledge Council. I'll have you go first, and then we'll have Ted talk about the fiscal note. And we have Representative Morris from House Committee on Environment for other questions. So thanks for coming.
Well, Chair, how much detail do you want me to go into, and should I focus on the bill or section by section?
Let's do this section by section. Sort of that's the higher level. We like to keep it a little bit higher level.
All right, so generally, this bill would require manufacturers and distributors of beverage containers to form an extended producer responsibility program. Those programs that are responsible for collecting and managing and disposing, recycling of materials that they sold but are no longer in use. This bill does not expand the scope of the current beverage container redemption system. You may recall a couple of years ago, there was a bill that would have done that. This does not do that. It maintains that universe of containers as it is today. It also does not raise the deposit on the existing containers. It remains 5 cents for most containers and 15 cents for liquor. And it effectively shifts the responsibility for the management of those containers from any retailer, redemption center that is selling or is in the business of being a redemption center to the manufacturers and distributors. And they have requirements for collection convenience, disposition, and such. Why the bill is in here is because it would move for 4 years money from the Clean Water Fund to the Solid Waste Management Assistance Account and the Waste Management Assistance Fund for grants to the Producer Responsibility Organization that is going to run the extended Producer Responsibility Program. $1 million in the first 2 of those fiscal years, $750,000 in those last 2. And that money is going to be used to build out the infrastructure for collection, disposition, management underneath the producer responsibility plan.
So this is moving money between special funds and no general fund is involved.
No general fund. It is taking that revenue that goes into the Clean Water Fund, the multiple sources that go into it, and then redirecting how it would be used.
Okay.
That's generally what the bill does.
Great. And we'll get the details on the money. But let's.
Okay. So section 1 is really amending all of the beverage container redemption chapter that's in existence today. The first change are the definitions. Again, beverage is what defines the scope of this chapter. It is not changing. It is remaining the same. Container is changing because right now there's an out. If you are made of biodegradable material, you technically are not subject to the container redemption system. And that's creating some peculiar containers. And so that's being removed. So all containers that contain a jurisdictional beverage are subject to the requirements. Distributor and manufacturer, I put the definition into the section by section just for your information. They are not changing. Then you get to section 1522, the beverage container deposit. Again, it's not changing. There is a technical change right now. It says the deposit will be not less than 5 cents, which makes people think it could be more than 5 cents. So we're striking the not less than, and it's just going to say the deposit is 5 cents for that majority of beverage containers. One of the things that is changing is increasing the handling fee. Do you know what the handling fee is? So when The consumer goes to the retailer, the consumer pays the retailer that 5 cents. The retailer has already paid the manufacturer the 5 cents for the deposit. When the consumer comes back, the 5 cents that the retailer collected from the consumer goes back to the consumer, and the retailer redemption center has that used container. When the manufacturer and distributor comes to pick up that used container, they pay that retailer or redemption center a fee, and that fee is called the handling fee. And there are two amounts for the handling fee. One is when commingled, when multiple manufacturers, distributors have agreed to allow for their containers to be commingled in production, and then the non-commingled, where they're not part of that commingling agreement, and your redemption center has to individually sort the container at the time of redemption. Yes.
Wayne, do you have a question with that?
Yeah, obviously not all the cans and bottles get collected. So the first 5 cents that goes from somebody to somebody. So all those that don't get redeemed, who keeps that money? Where does that money reside?
So a few years ago, you addressed the sheets or the unclaimed beverage container deposits, and the responsibility for remitting that amount is on what's called a deposit initiator. It's effectively the manufacturer, the distributor is the one, because they initiate the deposit. They sell that container that has the deposit on it, pass it down to the consumer, and it passes back up to them. And that is who pays the unclaimed beverage container. It's paid to the treasurer, and the treasurer pays it into the clean water.
So this is the, oh, it goes into clean water fund?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, shall I move on?
Yes.
So that handling fee for the non-commingled is being increased from 4 to 5 cents to incent manufacturers and distributors to go into a commingling program where the handling fee is only 3.5 cents. And so and it's just temporary, because once the standard producer responsibility program is set up, there's not going to be a handling fee. We'll talk about that in a minute. So there's in section 1522A, there's current rulemaking for the agency and specifics that they have to address. That's being repealed because it's no longer really relevant to the program. And it's definitely not going to be relevant once the PRO, the Extended Responsibility Program, is set up. Section 1523 it's changes to the requirements for acceptance of containers. Generally, the manufacturer distributor has a responsibility to pick up their containers and shall not refuse them unless there's an exemption that A&R issues. Those exemptions are there for a retailer to refuse to redeem beverage containers if a stewardship plan meets the requirements of the Act and the retailer has 5,000 square feet or less. So once there's a plan, if you're in a small store, you don't need to redeem anymore. You also don't need to redeem if you are a manufacturer or distributor yourself and you are selling directly to the consumer and you have 5,000 square feet or less. A vineyard, a small brewery, if they're selling directly and they're 5,000 square feet or less, they don't have to redeem. Okay. There's also changes to labeling. Generally, right now, you have to have a 5 cents that's indicated on your container, plus a designation of DT or Vermont. That is being clarified. One of the ways that it's being clarified is right now, it has to be on the top of the container. But you've probably seen containers like that water bottle right there that are aluminum that have small caps on top of it, that you can't fit all the information that's necessary on top of the cap in the size that is required. So they're allowing the label on the side or another approved method by A&R. And then another big one to help with redemption, processing, sorting is that every container will need to have a UPC code and barcode on it, which will allow for easier use of automatic equipment and automatic redemption. Section 1527 looks like all new language related to liquor redemption. It's new language, but it's not new requirements. This is how DLL has been implementing liquor redemption. It's just nowhere in statute that this is what they do. So this is adding into statute what they are doing. They run their own redemption. They are required to go and collect the redeemed liquor bottles. They are required to pay 15 cents on the liquor bottle, and they are required to pay 3.5 cents in handling on the liquor bottle. That is not changing. It's just actually putting it in law. One of the things that is changing under this statute, it allows DLL, once the product stewardship organization is set up and they're implementing a plan, DLL can negotiate with that PRO, the product responsibility organization, to collect DLL's bottles. So if you have this infrastructure that's collecting all the other beverage containers and DLL thinks it's more effective, either cost effectively, manpower, human power, they can negotiate with the PRO to collect the liquor bottles for DLL. It's not a requirement, it's a discretionary authority. Section 1529, there's a requirement that if you're a redemption center, you have to basically redeem more than 250,000 containers per year. Most redemption centers hit that and it's not enforced, so it's being repealed. Section 1531 is the requirement of the establishment of the producer responsibility organization. It provides that no manufacturer or distributor may sell or distribute a beverage container in the state without participating in that producer responsibility organization. And there's a full timeline for all of the dates. I'm not going to go through that, but it is here to roll out this program over time. So on or before January 1, 2027, the manufacturers apply to A&R to establish the PRO, to establish the organization that's going to run this program. A&R gets to approve based on the PRO has to be a nonprofit, PRO has to have the capacity to handle the program, and it can't create unreasonable barriers to participation by other manufacturers, which has happened in other programs. They don't like each other. They're like, you can't play in my playground. They're like, oh, I want to play in your playground. All right, if you do, you have to pay me $100,000. You can't do that underneath this program. They have to maintain a website that lists all their brands and all the manufacturers under it and each beverage that's covered under it and the size of the container covered. If it doesn't meet the requirements, then A&R can dissolve the PRO. A&R has the ability to just say you no longer are operating the PRO, and then A&R has authority to establish its own plan. If they establish their own plan, they assess all of the costs to the manufacturers and distributors, plus a 10% penalty fee. So that is the incentive for the PROs to run their own program. Because if they don't, A&R dissolves it and charges them a penalty. Then on page 3 of the section by section, you come to 1532, the stewardship plan and the minimum requirements under the plan. Whatever plan is adopted, it has to meet these requirements. It has to have a convenience of collection standard. And those standards are at least 3 points of redemption per county, and at least one of those points of redemption has to provide for immediate return of the deposit. In addition, there has to be at least 1 point of redemption in a town with a population of 7,000 or more, and that provides immediate return of the deposit. That's effectively the floor But the plan also has to take efforts to site collection in other points of high population density that might not have 7,000 people. You know, when the last bill went through and you had the debate about the convenience, Northfield was used as an example of, it might not be 7,000, but it's still high population density, especially when you consider students and et cetera. So that would be a site where a redemption collection site would be cited. But A&R has the authority to approve under the plan the reduction of redemption if there is determined to be duplication or redundancy of redemption in certain areas. So if you have, say you're in South Burlington and there's 17 grocery stores on Shelburne Road, A&R can say that not all of them have to serve as a redemption site. And so because there's just duplication and redundancy. But A&R has to approve it. The PRO can't just go out there and stop redemption at a store it doesn't want to. A&R has to approve it. Under the plan, there has to be fair compensation for the redemption sites. Now, remember I said there was a handling fee, but the handling fee is going away once the PRO is set up. This is what replaces the handling fee. This is how the handlers, the redemption centers, are going to be compensated. They will enter into compensation agreements with the PRO, and it may be more than what they were receiving under the handling fee, but in certain places it might be less because of the volume or because of the infrastructure that's there at the ease. It's basically going to be something that will be a site by site or potentially region by region compensation agreement. A&R has to approve it. The PRO can't just go out and lowball all of the redemption centers. A&R has to approve the compensation plan. And the PRO is supposed to maximize the use of existing infrastructure when establishing collection points. Collection points have to meet certain standards. They have to be safe, they have to be safely lit. They have to be managed to ensure safety, and they have to comply with all applicable laws regarding solid waste and the management of recyclables. The plan has to provide education to consumers about where collection is, how to engage the collection system, etc. The plan has to have a process for consultation with all stakeholders, redemption centers, retailers, solid waste, your municipal solid waste entities. Those will all be consulted as part of the stakeholder process. Then there's a reporting requirement. The manufacturers report no less than annually. The PRO reports to A&R. A bunch of information about the implementation of the program, its costs, where its collections are, convenience, how is it disposing or managing the containers that it collects and then has to manage their disposition. How are they managing environmental impacts, including carbon, greenhouse gas emissions? What educational materials they're providing and any other additional material that the agency requires. There's some timing for implementation. So within 90 days of receipt of a proposed plan from the PRO, A&R needs to approve or disapprove the plan. And then the PRO implements the plan not later than 9 months after A&R approval. So you don't have a specific deadline date when this program is going to be set because it's based on that timing of when the PRO submits the plan, when A&R approves it, and then 9 months later. But you're probably looking 2028, 2029. There are audits, as with all EPR programs. There's an audit of how the program's operating and the fiscal aspects of the program. So the audit of the program is an annual audit, and the fiscal audit is every 5 years. And you get that information from the PRO submitted directly to A&R, and A&R submits it to you. There is a redemption rate goal under section 1534. So beginning by July 1, 2029, the goal is to get to 75% of redemption. Right now, you're in that 70 to 72 range. And then by July of 2032, the goal is to get to 80%. And then beginning January 1, 2029, A&R reports to you, the legislature, the redemption rate for liquor bottles and all other beverage containers. And at that time, they recommend to you whether or not to increase the deposit or to take any other actions to increase redemption rates. Previously, there was something called the automatic escalator. And the automatic escalator automatically increased the deposit if you did not meet the redemption rates. That is not in this bill. Again, the deposit is not increasing underneath this bill. The only thing that could lead to that is A&R's recommendation to you, and then you would have to do that legislatively. Section 1535, there's rulemaking. It's general rulemaking for the agency. It replaces the specific rulemaking that was really no longer relevant. Section 1536 on page 6 of the section by section. When you have a bunch of people working together and talking about where they're selling or how they're implementing their program, that looks like collusion, and collusion is generally illegal. This allows those manufacturers and distributors to work together to form the PRO and not be subject to the state antitrust law, but they are not immune from antitrust liability if they're price fixing or fixing where the product might be sold. So it's immunity for them working together for the PRO, not for anything outside of that. In addition, they always ask for federal immunity as well from federal antitrust laws. You can't provide that. So if somebody asks, well, why aren't they immune from federal law? Because you don't control that. Section 2 was amending A&R standard notice requirements. As you may know, A&R has different types of notice depending on the different type of permit or plan or activity that they're undertaking. This is going to be a type 3 notice. It's effectively what's used for general permits. There is a public comment period, and A&R has to hold a public meeting. So this plan that's going to go out for the PRO is going to be subject to public review, comment, and a public meeting if someone requests a public meeting. Section 3 is the first appropriation section. This is the Clean Water Fund. Fiscal year 2030 and 2031, $1 million is transferred. Fiscal year 2032 and 2033, $750,000 is transferred. Section 4 is where it is transferred into. There's a Waste Management Assistance Fund. This pays for multiple different types of waste management activities.
That exists now.
This exists. This is not a new special fund. So the Waste Management Assistance Fund is broken up into 3 different accounts: the hazardous waste account, solid waste account, and the e-waste account. As you probably know, those are really just fictions because they don't really have accounts within special funds. But that's how this money is going. It's going to be managed specifically for solid waste management, and then specifically for grants to the PRO to set up. And it's going to be reimbursable grants. It's not proactive grants, reimbursable grants. The money that they're spending to set up the infrastructure for the program, the manufacturer distributor has to apply to A&R for reimbursement of that expense. Up to $1 million in those first two fiscal years, up to $750,000 in the last 2 fiscal years. There is section 5, there's just a report from the manufacturers and distributors about what they are collecting, the amount they collect, the location of the material and what products the material, the containers were recycled into. And then once the PRO is set up, A&R is no longer going to certify redemption centers because remember, the PRO is negotiating with redemption centers of who's going to be their redemption center, what the compensation is going to be. It's all going to be by contract or agreement underneath the plan. So no longer, A&R no longer needs to certify those redemption centers. And then the act takes effect July 1, 2026, but then there's the timeline, which I won't go through.
Wayne.
What's the problem that this is intended to fix?
I mean, I think that depends on your perspective. You know, if you were going to set up a program today to manage beverage containers, you probably wouldn't have a bottle deposit system. You would probably just have a PRO. But when you look at the bottle deposit system, it has social and environmental benefits that are effectively ingrained in how beverage containers are managed today.
Feel good thing.
Well, it's not just a feel-good thing. There was an analysis of 2015. There was an analysis. There was just a recent analysis done by A&R. And they hired the expert on this subject to review the cost, the effectiveness, the future effectiveness, and that expert basically comes back with, you should probably continue the system with an EPR program. To shift cost, right now your municipalities are taking on a lot of this cost, right? Your municipalities, even though the containers go back to redemption centers, a lot of them don't. And they go to your municipality and your municipality has to manage it.
So what are the PROs going to do with it?
What is the PR what?
I mean, the new system, how will the end difference when the product, the can or bottle, gets to its final destination, will it be a new destination other than a landfill or recycling?
Well,
I mean, products being melted down and made into something new.
Well, ultimately, the goal for disposition is for reuse, for recycling. But one of the things and that's part of the plan, they have to identify what they're going to do with it, and then they have to report to A&R and you about what they've done with it. So you have monitoring and oversight of that. Most of the aluminum, most of the PET is reusable and recyclable. Glass is where you have a problem. If it's dirty or if it's broken. One of the things about the redemption center system is that it maintains those glass bottles, containers in a cleaner form that's more readily reusable or recyclable. So that's one thing that moving more into the redemption center and out of your municipal solid waste will be helpful in an environmental way.
Do you have any assessment of what the additional costs will be to industry? Because obviously, you know, if it costs more, if they have to do more things and it's costing industry more, they're going to pass that on. It's going to cost all of us more.
Well, that's partly why you're giving them these reimbursable grants to help set up the system, to offset some of the costs for the manufacturers and the producers as they set up the infrastructure. Once the infrastructure gets out there, and there's some crazy stuff that's out there right now. It's like, you've probably gone to a grocery store and seen the automatic ones where you basically stick your hand in there and you're where your hand's going to get redeemed. But now they have these ones that are like big commercial washing machines. You open a big door, you just throw a whole bag in there, you close the door, it takes like 10 seconds and you get a slip and you've just redeemed everything. You're not waiting in line. You're not like waiting for somebody to go through your stuff and do the sort.
So the cost of that, all that equipment will be through grants or something.
Well, the PRO is probably going to want to own that equipment. And so they'll probably work with the redemption centers about agreements on where it is, how it's going to be maintained, et cetera.
Obviously, my concern is increasing costs of doing it.
For the manufacturer and distributor, it's going to be an extra cost, and I don't think anyone denies that. And will it be passed back to the consumer? That's economics. But I will say I've drafted all of the EPR bills. One of the first was the e-waste bill, and people were like, televisions are going to be like $500 more in Vermont than they are in New Hampshire. Televisions are like $150 at Costco right now. It's like it didn't shift the market or the price because of the regional nature of that product. It didn't change the price that much, if at all. And you're probably going to have a similar dynamic here, because even though this is just for Vermont, this PRO program, New York has a deposit. Maine has a deposit. Maine has basically a producer responsibility program. Massachusetts has a deposit. Connecticut has a deposit. The product is sold and manufactured on a region-wide basis. New Hampshire's your outlier. So, but I don't. Yes, it will be assumed by the manufacturer distributor. Will it be then charged out specifically to Vermont? I don't think so. I think if there's going to be a price increase, it would be a regional.
No testimony from the
No, they testified. They definitely testified.
Oh, I couldn't hear you.
from the businesses.
No, they testified. They are. I'm not going to characterize their support, but they're not opposing this.
Not opposing it. Okay, thanks.
And do you have a question?
Yeah, when we did a few years ago do an upgrade, or I'm not sure it passed or not, we talked about modernizing the bottle bill. There has been a lot of efforts put in previous to that, a lot of money spent by solid waste collectors for a universal recycling program that put a lot of millions of dollars worth of stuff in there. So we don't have to separate stuff at home. You just all throw it in. That's what they were going to do. And the argument at the time, if I recall, was that because that was actually more effective, and probably these people who would, Casella and others had gone and spent this money to go and modernize the whole recycling process in a way that would be more efficient and better, that the bottle bill was sort of, the redemption logic was not exactly the best way to go. It was not going to be more efficient, cleaner, any of that other stuff. Now did that bottle bill actually go through, or did I hear you earlier say that it did not pass and we still have what we always have had?
You enacted it. The House and the Senate passed it, the governor vetoed it.
Okay, so it's not in effect.
It's not in effect, but this is different from, and it's different in a couple of different ways. One of which is it's not expanding the scope of the universe of containers, which each one
They tried to do.
the previous did. And that would have diverted a significant amount of material that's managed at the solid waste management level by Collars, Casella, and their MRF, Chittenden County and their MRF. Would have diverted material away from those facilities, those collectors. But that material is not going anywhere because it's not subject to the deposit. It's not going to be part of this program. It's going to still remain in its existing collection. conditions.
Is that the solid waste system?
Yes, yes. So your solid waste management districts will not be losing the PET that they collect from juice bottles or iced tea bottles or aluminum from hard cider or energy drinks that are not carbonated. And so that material remains in that system, as do the abandoned containers that are subject to the deposit remain in that system. Will this provide an incentive for more people to actually redeem those containers that have a deposit? It may. It may be easier because right now there are what are called redemption deserts where you can't redeem something conveniently. You have to drive distances and wait in order to redeem. And that takes away an incentive to do it because it's transportation time, et cetera. With these convenience standards, at least 3 per county, at least 1 per population center of 7,000 or more, there should not be redemption deserts.
Okay, I'm confused. This bill does not, let's go back. We did not have like water bottles, aluminum bottles, some of those things that you mentioned. They were never included in the original bottle bill.
Never included.
They were not included after the governor vetoed that bill,
Included after
although
the
that was one of the goals of that bottle bill. This will not include them either.
Correct.
Okay. So why are we not including them? Or how is that solving the solid waste issue?
We are not including them because the solid waste management haulers and the solid waste management entities objected to that the last time you tried to do that.
Okay, and their recycling system that they have, the universal,
Continues as it is.
and they're still doing that, and they will continue to do that under this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We let Ted talk about the fiscal note. We'll give Mike a break.
Today, I will cover some of the same ground. Tempernet Joint Fiscal Office. Y'all should have a fiscal note. I will jump straight to our fiscal impact section of the note. And the main headline here is the transfers from the Clean Water Fund to the Solid Waste Management Assistant account. And those transfers would be up to $1 million in fiscal years 2030 and 2031, and up to $750,000 in fiscal years 2032 and 2033, for a grand total of up to $3.5 million. Right in the Clean Water Fund. That means that within those years, the Clean Water Fund would have less available funds to do various clean water projects. So one could argue this within a similar jurisdiction. Also we in the fiscal note did spend a little time thinking about whether the system would increase convenience and whether that would decrease the amount of unclaimed bottle deposits. People claiming those bottle deposits because they had a redemption center that was more convenient to them. We all reduced some of the deserts. In keeping with the report commissioned by A&R, they did not do any modeling on changes in behavior. And so we're following that lead. And we'll also note that in the near term, current redemption, there's a goal of 75%. We're currently in the low 70s. So there's not a large forecasted increase, at least in the statutory goals, until you get to 80%. So saying that there could be some reduction in SG revenue from increased convenience, but it's not, we weren't able to put a number on it. Would also want to flag that for A&R, right? If for whatever reason a producer responsibility organization is not formed or A&R felt that the PRO did not meet their standards, right, they could dissolve it, in which case ANR would be responsible. And within the bill, they would be able to receive compensation from beverage manufacturers and that 10% penalty. And that you would see that the amount that they're charging those producers in their budget request, and that's where it would show up. So just flagging that if that were to come to pass, you all would see it in the future, but not a guarantee. And then if we're really dotting our I's and crossing our T's, although the bill enshrines how liquor and lottery currently manages bottles, if the PRO happens to be more efficient than the contractor they currently use, they could see cost savings. And so from a budgetary standpoint, that frees up resources they could use in other areas of their budget. Those are kind of the main fiscal impacts. I'm happy to talk about big picture historical S-cheat revenues, how S-cheats fit into the Clean Water Fund, some very high level, the magnitude of the Clean Water Fund budget in fiscal year 27, if that'd be helpful for the committee, or they could just be for reference in the fiscal note.
Yeah, I remember having the conversation about S-cheats when I was in Ways and Means and what we were going to do with it. Plus, we all sat around the committee table practicing how to say S-cheats.
I think
I'm sure I'm still saying it correctly, but I think that's how you say
I
it.
stopped using it because I was saying it incorrectly.
Yeah. So we had quite the conversation around that. But have they always gone into the Clean Water Fund, or did we switch that a few years ago?
Don't remember, do you know the exact date in 2007? Somewhere in the 2010s.
Yeah, but yes, you put it into the Clean Water Fund. There were efforts before then to put it into the Waste Management Fund, but those never passed. But remember, EPA was looking for a dedicated funding source for the TMDL.
Yes.
And for Champlain and Memphremagog. And you were trying to build enough revenue for the Clean Water Fund for that. And this is one of those sources.
Right. And so, but there's a clear nexus between, because it's S-cheats from bottle with this program. So that makes sense to me that that's where you're choosing. And so I'm wondering if it's clear, or what the conversation was around what isn't going to get done on the clean water side because this money is going over.
So that's an annual process. Remember, the Clean Water Fund isn't effectively standalone. It's not like many other special funds where they have the authority to issue grants from the fund. They have the authority to effectively develop a budget from year to year that they recommend to the administration and they recommend to you. And then you choose how those funds are going to be spent in your appropriation process. So, the effect of that is probably in an appropriation sense, it's 1 year after each fiscal year, because the money comes in, you're paying out in fiscal year 27 what you have put in into the Clean Water Fund in 26. And so the effect of this is going to be shifted a year down the road. And how it's spent, what's left in the Clean Water Fund, that will be up to you, what you forego or not. You usually accept the recommendations of the Clean Water.
Right, and they don't spend it all down every year. There's
No, they don't spend it all. They try to keep a reserve.
Yeah.
And I don't recall the exact number this year that's in the Clean Water Fund. Is it?
For fiscal year 27, it's 45.2 million.
Yeah, 45.2, okay.
Yes.
Wayne, and then Lynn.
We have major projects in that clean water. I assume those are going for everything from stormwater.
Yes, it's the whole, it's agriculture, it's stormwater, it's roads.
All those big things that are really causing us a big problem that we need to deal with.
And programs are statewide, they're not just.
My problem again is looking at this and seeing where's the cost, where's the benefit, where's the big benefit, where's the cost benefit? And, you know, when we got clean water fund, that's funding things that we really need to be addressed. And that makes me a little nervous. If there was a clear, you could say, look, it's gonna be cheaper. We're gonna save money by doing this, or we're gonna take all this out of the stream and it's all gonna be recycled in a nice package that we can get back as new products. And give me a ledger sheet saying, okay, here's the estimated, you know, profit that we're gonna get out of this. I'd feel a lot better about it. It just seems squishy to me.
Well, I mean, I'm trending a little bit off leash here, but.
We can have a committee member speak about it if that would be more appropriate.
But my response is the $1 million in 2 fiscal years. So moving the fund from 45 million to 44 million for 2 fiscal years, and then just under or just over 44 million for 2 fiscal years. And you're setting up a collection and redemption system that has mandatory convenience, mandatory standards, easier redemption because you have UPC and barcode, easier redemption because you're going to have automatic redemption infrastructure. You're shifting costs from the municipalities. And that's effectively what it will do.
Lynn and then Marty.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to find out what the sources of the solid waste fund is now.
So there's the solid waste management tipping fee, really a tax.
That's on the waste collectors.
Or really on what they deliver to the landfill. And then there's a solid waste franchise tax.
How much money do they have?
Ooh, I don't know how much the Waste Management Assistance Fund has.
I can probably pull it up in 30 seconds.
I have concerns about the clean.
Lynn, we can't hear you back here
I
because.
have concerns about the clean water fund.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean,
The thing blowing back here.
I know, I worked long hard to try to get money into that fund.
Yeah.
Which council remembers, and I have concerns because I agree with Representative LaRoche. I represent St. Albans Bay, which is a major concern on Lake Champlain and our community. And there's a lot of things that we have worked on across all sectors of our area to go and improve that. But there's still a lot to be done.
Yeah.
And this whole thing looks, pardon my expression, convoluted. And then you're going to take money from the Clean Water Fund in addition to that. And I'm not sure that it's going to make it better.
Right.
That's my concern.
We will have Representative Morris come to the table in a minute, because the committee had this conversation, but I want to finish up with our questions before we get him over.
Well, mine is just a confirmation. After the 2 years of this transfer of money in order to allow the PRA to move, do the sheets go back to the Clean Water Fund or they do not go at all?
They go back.
But if they continue on their current process, okay. So that the Clean Water Fund will get the sheets money after this new thing gets over.
Yeah, and Ted, it was 2.8 in the sheets here.
Low threes, let me see, it is
Yeah.
3.8, or sorry,
$1
actual.
million a year.
So what would be the total dollars that the Clean Water Fund would not get
Yeah.
during the period of time that,
It's actually going.
It's at 1 point.
Over 4 fiscal years, it's 3.5 million.
They're only moving.
that's the sheets.
Right,
plus
right, yeah.
that's
Right.
in terms of get started.
Plus they have all the other money.
So that's the same thing. The 3.5 in the sheets is what you're giving to the PRO to reimburse their costs to set up the system.
For the 2 years.
For 4 years.
So 3.5 is what we.
Right. On a total clean water fund of, no, well, 45 per year.
2 at 1 million.
So 180 total over 4 years.
Up to.
3.5 out of 180 over 4 years.
All right. I think we can get Rep Morris to, don't any of you leave, but Rep Morris up here to talk a little bit more about the thinking around this.
Before I leave
Oh, okay.
I have a, yeah.
You're not voting on this.
Madam Chair, before I hop out of the.
Yes.
Hop out of the.
You can just
Waste,
say that's fine.
the Waste Management Assistance Fund in fiscal year 25 received just over $5 million of revenue
Okay,
from the tipping fee and franchise tax.
okay. Do they spend an amount every year?
They spent a little over 7 million because they received 1.5 in other sources. I don't know what those other sources are. But yes, the fund is roughly.
Down to 0 every time?
They ended up with this $800,000 fund balance at the end of 25. So yeah, they're
They don't have the kind of money the other fund is. Okay,
So you allow transfers between a hazardous waste into the solid waste. Solid waste is the popular one
right.
because that's what is used to provide grants to your local solid waste management.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, don't leave, but Representative Morris, thank you for joining us. If you want to introduce yourself and maybe just tell us a little bit about the sort of committee thinking around this bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Christy Morris, representative from Springfield, North Springfield. It's all one community, but North Springfield's kind of partial to their
They
title.
like their special designation.
So the thinking of the committee is, and I've been listening to the questions and it's correct. There are two systems in the state, the redemption system and there's the recycle system with the Casellas and the Chittenden County, Murph, et cetera. There are two systems. Arguably, they're both important to our communities, without a doubt. I come from a depressed economy town, Springfield, has been for years since the machine tool industrial. And if you're going to hire one of the trash haulers to pick up your trash, there's a fee for that, and then the recycle materials, blue bins, if I can use that word, there's no cost for that, but you're picking up your trash. And the last I heard, that was like $35 a month. So there's a lot of my community that would struggle with that. And we have egregious properties right now that the town is dealing with trash and litter, not litter so much, but just piles and piles of stuff. So this program is not going to necessarily help that, but I just want to recognize that there's two systems. And if you're in favor of one, you may not be in favor of the other. If it's vice versa, you like the idea of redemption and taking your cans and bottles back to the stores or the redemption centers. And yes, it can be a feel good thing. I heard that comment, but it is keeping the materials off our roadsides. It is keeping it out of our trash. Landfill, our one and only landfill, it is keeping materials out. The other thing that we've tried to do with the past two bienniums is that we've tried to assist or stand up redemption centers by, let me back up a step. There's only one way that a redemption center can make more money, and that's through the handling fee that the producer responsibility organization pays, or the manufacturer distributors pays them through the. So they've been struggling for a number of years. Wages go up, cost of operation goes up, and that's not untrue with the zero sort or single stream sort, the blue bins. Their costs go up. So here we are with a second entity, the redemption centers, that are struggling. And we tried the past two bienniums to increase the number of containers, including water bottles, et cetera, juice bottles, et cetera, and that had failed. We tried the last time to increase the deposit amount to 10 cents, and that failed. So the support we've tried to do for our redemption centers has been problematic, and And a little frustrating for them, because some of them, they're saying they can't continue to operate. It's like education. The costs just keep going up, but the revenue is not coming in. You do the math on that, and some of them can be in danger, and some of them have been. So for the interim, increasing the non-commingling fee from 4 cents to 5 cents is going to help them in the interim. The PRO is charged with setting up this program, and arguably there could be a cost to that. Absolutely, I think Michael O'Grady spoke very well to what we've seen with other programs, the paint program, the battery program, the electronics program, hazardous material program. And all of those programs have one thing in common. It's putting the responsibility back on the manufacturers and distributors. And that's probably where it should be. And I would like to remind the committee that we still only have the one landfill in Coventry, Vermont. And we've heard that that's could be arguably close to end of life, maybe 20 years, maybe whatever. I'm not gonna guess. So this program is a way of getting more materials, cleaner materials that the industry prefers to have back for recycle reuse. And there are programs that are being stood up around the country, and I'm not familiar with where they all are. The recycle or solid waste districts, they transfer their materials elsewhere. They get collected. And that depends on the market, of course, whether pricing is up or pricing is down. So the one advantage they have is if tipping fees go up, or if the cost of collection goes up from consumers, they increase their rates. Redemption centers don't have that luxury right now. So this is a way to get the producer responsibility organizations to stand up the program, the stewardship plan, and modernize this hand sorting of containers, which we've heard, can be over 150 different sorts, up to 200 different sorts, which is, just think about that. If you're the person that's sorting
It's like the mail, the post office and.
Never stops.
They do that in my town.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other thing is so this plan would charge them with modernizing it, and that is why the contribution from the Clean Water Fund for 4 years is to incentivize them to modernize the equipment into our stores. And I think you've all seen the reverse vending machines that Michael was speaking to in your stores.
Stick your hand in and don't get it out.
I've always gotten mine out so far, but
We have an extra hand over here, I think, Dave.
there are other benefits to the redemption system, redemption center system, and that is the employees that they have. They're not necessarily high-paying jobs, so they're limited on staffing that they can get. And that's important to income for these people, albeit it may not be to the level some of us would work for. However, it is a benefit to the number of employees that are employed within the redemption centers around the total state. Charging the PROs with modernizing and enhancing our current locations, as well as putting in new locations. So for instance, we've heard in the Northeast Kingdom, it may be slim pickings to try to find a redemption center within proximal distance. This program is charging them with standing up additional locations using the existing infrastructure. So that's our current redemption centers. And then modernizing them to reduce the number of sorts, which is labor intensive, to incentivize commingling so that distributors and manufacturers enable containers to be bagged together. And then also there's an incentive in there for the distributors and manufacturers to pick up the containers more often. That has been problematic in the past. I think we've all heard that. So it is a valuable program if you believe in redemption.
Believe in redemption. Sorry, all believe in redemption.
At some point, we're all.
We're not going to vote on that. Sorry.
But the other benefit is we're all aware of local sports teams or scout entities, or there's other programs that collect the bottles for deposits to fund them. So if that goes away, who does that fall back on? Your communities or other entrepreneurs or businesses within your town. So it's a small benefit, but it is a good benefit.
For lots of little kids groups, yeah, that's a good point.
So we feel it is important that redemption remain in place, container redemption remain in place. We're not asking for additional deposit fees on the containers. We're not adding in other containers. And those efforts have failed the last two bienniums. And we're hopeful that this is just a small step. Put the responsibility back on the distributors and manufacturers for managing our waste, which has been successful with these other programs that I mentioned earlier.
Great. Thank you for giving us a little more of that background that you can as a community member. Any other questions for folks here? We're not going to vote on this today, but we wanted to hear it all. We'll vote the next, I don't know when. I get my messages from upstairs and the side room we're going to vote. They've got a lot of bills they're trying to figure out the timing of. So we often hear bills and then we vote on them a couple days later. So
Understood. I appreciate the opportunity to testify. I happen to think this is the second best room in the State House. It's, yeah, I don't know where the first one is.
Thank
And
you for coming.
Well, glad you agree.
Speak for yourself. Yeah, they do have a nice view. You have a view.
It's the people.
it's the people.
So, Mike and Ted, thank you very much. It sounds like we're good. Thank you, Chris. So I know Tom has to go, but committee, you do whatever you need to do. Well, I guess we have a couple of minutes. So tomorrow, yeah, I need to find the right page. We are going to vote on 8:14 tomorrow. That was the neuro artificial intelligence. Wayne's coming in with a microchip.
He's gonna have a headband on.
Yeah, we may vote on the parole board tomorrow. That's 5:59. 8:14, we're gonna walk through the landlord tenant bill. We're gonna hear the greenhouse gas inventory bill. We think we're gonna have an amendment and vote on 660 in the afternoon. That's the opioid settlement fund. So it's another bill day with breaks built in so you can keep working on your priorities. You can use this afternoon to work on your priorities as well. If you need to go to the floor, that's fine. If you don't need to go to the floor, I mean, that's your choice. We aren't required. Except if you have constituents or reporting.
But we're done here.
We're done in here for the day.
Okay, yes, no. I'll come back.
And so many of us will be around. So I think that's it. And we start tomorrow at what time do we start? 9:45. I don't know how we did that. I'll text you if we do something at 9 or 9:30.
No.
That means nobody can be late because it's really late that we're starting.